Hi, welcome to Wetpixel Live. My name is Adam Hanlon, and I'm joined by our regular contributor, Alex Mustard. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Adam. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Looking very colourful with your green screen. So today we thought we would talk about an amazing shark diving destination, which is Tiger Beach in the Bahamas. And I have to admit that I was a relative latecomer to Tiger Beach, but Alex was one of the early pioneers of Tiger Beach and survived some of the early Wetpixel expeditions to Tiger Beach. So what was it like back in the early 2000s, Alex?
Well, I think first thing I would say is that I guess it was definitely very exciting because you felt you were really on a frontier of diving, because it was still a time when relatively few people had photographs of tiger sharks.
Yeah.
And those first few years of tiger shark, or first year or two of Tiger Beach being a destination, almost every photographer, got a story published on Tiger Beach because the magazines were desperate for it. No one had pictures of these species with any reliability before. And, it just seemed such an exciting adventure to be part of. It wasn't a particularly unusual adventure because at the time everyone was doing it.
Yeah.
So you never really felt that you were doing something no one else was doing that much, but you were definitely feeling like this is a step into the unknown. There was initially only one boat going there, which was Jim Abernathy's boat,
Yep.
which we ran the Wetpixel trips on, and it became more and more popular. It's easy to get a bit rose-tinted spectacle about, face mask about it, and things that you didn't see hammerheads there then. There are not as many sharks there then as there are now.
Yeah.
You didn't get reef sharks on the sand and things. So I'd say now it's almost, I'd say it's probably a better dive now. And the operators know much more about everything now.
Yeah.
Whereas back then, it was obviously more exciting as everything was new, but probably the experience is better now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did have, I know you had a picture of me that you were threatening to show.
Very glamorous.
It was very exciting as well because back those days, particularly on the Wetpixel trips, we were very much an international community of photographers on Wetpixel, and the trips were really the only time we saw each other. And so it was very exciting getting on board the boat with these people who you conversed with on the forums year long, and then you got to actually be all together, and it was Geek Fest Central. And Jim Abernathy named Tiger Beach. And the story certainly he told at the time was that he called it Tiger Beach to put tiger shark fishermen off the scent, because there's no beach at Tiger Beach. It's a submerged area of shallow water, but no part of it ever comes anywhere near the surface. Yep. So yeah, the name comes from that. But it was a fantastically exciting place to go in the early days, and actually it's a place I've been very, very keen to get back to. And have had a couple of efforts thwarted by organizational difficulties that we experience quite commonly these days in the diving world with COVID and everything. But I really would love to get back there again and shoot it again, because it's been a long time.
So it's a very unique place, and it's about 24 miles northwest of the west end of Grand Cayman. West end of Grand Bahama, sorry, completely the wrong island. And typically is accessed either via a liveaboard or via a day boat that's normally based on somewhere on the west end of Grand Bahama. And as Alex says, the first thing that people expect, they expect there to be a beach, and there isn't. It's typically an area of largely white sand, and it's an area that Jim and subsequently others have discovered that pregnant female tigers come in there while they're during the gestation period, it seems. And over time, these tigers have become, I don't want to use the word habituated because that's not true, they're very much still wild animals, but they've become used to interacting with divers on some level. And this has provided a unique photographic opportunity for us. And it's an amazing place to visit. the way that the place is normally set up, and again, obviously different operators will do this slightly different ways, but they will use some food to get the sharks on side. But once they do, you can have this incredible experience where you can have 10 or 11 tiger sharks. And probably 20 or 30 combination of lemons and Caribbean reef sharks. And as Alex says recently, they've also had quite a lot of hammerhead action, bull shark action. So although we call it Tiger Beach, maybe it would be better named Shark Beach or Shark. It's not a beach, but Shark wherever.
In the winter months, typically there's more sharks there.
Yeah.
But because it doesn't come to the surface anywhere, there's no shelter out there.
Yeah.
So it can be very weather dependent. So the best shark action typically is during the cooler months, but that's also when there's more chance of it being stormy, and therefore you being more weather affected.
You paid your money, you take the choices. So one of the things I thought I'd share a few pictures from Tiger Beach. So the first picture really was a picture at the back of the boat, and this is using Epic Diving. Who were the operators that we've used for a couple of years now. It's not uncommon to have these scenes at the back of the boat at Tiger Beach. Typically, the sharks at the surface tends to be the smaller sharks, the bigger sharks on the bottom. But it obviously has this very interesting perspective of literally you're descending through clouds of sharks, which I think the first time you do it is an interesting experience. It persuades you not to hang around during your ascent and descent, and I think that's probably quite an important diving tip when you're diving the beach is not to hang around your ascent and descent. It's not a great place to be hanging around, but literally you're descending through this group of sharks. It also at the same time, it actually does provide quite a lot of photographic potential. And one of the things that we should register as photographers is that great underwater images are always taken underwater. And I've got a picture here actually of Alex, and I am cheating because it wasn't a Tiger Beach. It was on our trip to the Bahamas in 2014, and Jim Abernethy took this particular type of photography to a whole new level. He calls them tiger snaps, and the idea is again capturing pictures of the sharks as they come in onto the dive platform on the back of the boat, and just literally putting the camera in the water and pressing the shutter and see what happens. I think Alex, you used a pole cam a bit, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah.
Was that to achieve tiger snaps, or was that to do?
Yeah, it was also that often on the back of the boat, there was often limited space, and if you had a pole cam set up, when it wasn't your turn on the back of the boat, you could have a camera maybe off the side where there wasn't a swim step and still be able to shoot. So yeah, it was. I think it's nice on the boat, but when you've got a group of photographers, there's only so much space to shoot off the back of the boat. So if you've got say a 5-minute slot there, maybe someone else is going to be, you may not get much action during your 5 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. So once you actually get through the cloud of sharks and get down on the bottom, so the next picture here just shows a sort of typical scene on the bottom. Typically, there's a lot of sharks around. This is the picture of the photographer taking the picture of the tiger. There's typically a lot of sharks around. They will hang around where the operators normally have bait on the bottom. They normally hang around the bait. It's interesting to note that when the bait's finished, the sharks leave, which kind of tends to suggest that they're there for the food and they're not that interested in the people, which I think is probably true. What I tend to find about this type of situation is photographically, I find it's quite chaotic and it's quite hard to get nice imagery. They can be quite action-packed imagery, but I tend to find that to try and show the sharks at their best, the shots around the bait and the shots with lots of photographers in shot tend to actually somewhat diminish from the overall impact that these wonderful creatures have. So one of the things that I will tend to do is try and sort of drift away from the bait a little bit, and you've got to be careful doing that, obviously, but certainly point my camera away from the bait, maybe a better way of looking at it. And so this next picture here is a picture of a Caribbean reef shark in the sunbeams coming on towards the camera. And to me, well, first of all, Caribbean reef sharks are definitely the archetypal shape of a shark. I think if you were to ask a child to draw a shark, it would end up probably looking something like a Caribbean reef shark. So for me, I find them a very attractive looking animal. But also, this picture of this shark gliding through the blue, that's much more what sharks are about than what you see, the sort of slightly frenetic activity that's going on around the bait crate. So I really like this idea of trying to capture them in when they're not behaving as frenetically.
Yeah, I mean, I have exactly the same experiences on whenever I run workshops to the Bahamas for these types of diving. I always say to people, at the beginning of the week, you're all going to be fighting each other to be the person next to the bait to have the most action. And by the end of the week, you'll all be fighting each other to be at the end of the line where you can get the nice, beautiful portraits with nice, clean images, nice light, much more natural feel to the images. Absolutely. So, and that happens every workshop. And at the end of the week, no one wants to be near the bait. And everyone's like, at the beginning of the week, they're all like, oh, that person had 5 more minutes than me by the bait. And at the end of the week, they're like, I don't want to go by the bait, you go by the bait.
So something else I think that I really like, I mean, there is obviously in one of our previous episodes we talked about the fact of putting divers in the picture, and I think sometimes, particularly with the tigers that are so big, and they're not physically only long, they're also very big animals. Putting a diver in the picture helps give perspective, and I've just got this picture here of a photographer taking a picture of a tiger shark from side on. Again, obviously, lovely Bahamian blue water as you tend to get. And it helps to give an idea. There's a little bit of cheating, a little bit of perspective here because the diver is some distance behind the shark. But again, just trying to get the idea. These animals are so big, and again, that this is not on the bait crate. It's moving, doing what it's doing, cruising along the beach, cruising along the sand, and the photographer's there to capture the picture. And I think the last picture that I was going to show is just so although the majority of Tiger Beach is a white sand bottom, and that's good photographically, it's quite a coarse sand, so it tends to mean that the sharks themselves often stir it up, but also your fellow photographers, normally we tend to be quite overweighted in order to stay on the bottom if there's a current. So it's not one of those dive sites where you tend to be concentrating on being off the sand most of the time you're on the sand, and that means of course when people move the sand gets stirred up. But the good news is because it's quite coarse sand, it does settle out quite quickly as well. But there are little patches of reef at Tiger Beach as well, and Tiger Beach possibly isn't, because it is a misnomer, but it is also an area rather than a specific location. So, it's always nice to sometimes try and get away from the white sand for a bit of the diving and move away somewhere where you can capture the sharks over the reef. And as I say, this last image I was going to show is of a Caribbean reef shark just moving over the reef. One of the reefy bits of Tiger Beach. So trying to get a bit more of a variety in the portfolio of images that you capture at Tiger Beach I think is a really good thing.
I think that's important to understand, is that it's quite a variable area. It's the classic shots are tiger shark over white sand, but seagrass areas of small sea plumes and things like that, on hard pan exist, and then full-on reefy areas. I really like the reefy areas. I think the pictures there are more usable. The tiger sharks over white sand are beautiful, but they're very much Tiger Beach.
Yeah.
Whereas the sharks over the reef are then the chance to actually say, here's a reef in full with natural predators, and I really like that type of shot.
Yeah, and in many ways is a type of shot that we should possibly be aiming to achieve, because it represents a much more natural experience. I'm not sure how much time tigers would spend over white sand if there wasn't some food around. Yeah.
Oh, I think the females are in that area, and they do. But it's this very specific look. I think that's one of the nice things as well, is that you think, oh, do I really need a week doing the same thing day after day? But part of it is you do need to play the odds with the weather and the sharks turning up, and you need those times to get the opportunities. There can be periods there where you're in for 45 minutes and you take 350 photos, and then there are days when you're waiting there for 5 hours and you don't even put your wetsuit on.
Yep.
And I think you've got to be prepared for that when booking a trip there.
And I think the other thing is weather. You're a long way offshore. There isn't any shelter. So when the wind blows, all the boats have to run in one or the direction to get out of it. And given that the closest shelter at all is at Grand Cayman, which is, so I keep saying that, Grand Bahama, which is 24 miles away. It means that it's going to put a crimp in your tail. Having said that, Nick Moore and I once spent, I think Nick managed more time, but Nick managed to spend 8 hours underwater at Tiger Beach on one day, which was quite an impressive feat, I think. But it's good, you can often get down there and spend a long time underwater there and get some great pictures. So anyway, a little bit of a kind of overview and some images from Tiger Beach. I hope you enjoyed it. Alex has lots of pictures of Tiger Beach on his website. Where can we find those, Alex?
I don't tend to tag it Tiger Beach, but I'm sure if you type shark, you'll find yourself in some nice pictures.
Or tiger shark, I should think. Yeah, great. Thank you very much, Alex. And I'll just get the right button. And thanks to our sponsor for this episode, which is Nauticam. And I'd like to thank you for watching. Please feel free to give us a like or to tell us your experiences of diving with sharks in the comment section below. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you again soon.